Sylvester Oko, notoriously known by his nickname Davido, was a final-year student of theater arts at the University of Calabar. His reputation preceded him, and whispers of his ruthless and brutal exploits as a member of the Viking confraternity sent shivers down the spines of his fellow students. Within the Vikings hierarchy, Sylvester held the esteemed position of Arkman, second in command only to the feared executioner. His notoriety on campus was unparalleled, with a trail of oppression, intimidation, and violence that had become synonymous with his name. The school's security team had frequent run-ins with Sylvester, who seemed to take great pleasure in pushing the boundaries of acceptable behavior. Allegations of rape, assault, and extortion had become commonplace, and many wondered how he had managed to evade expulsion for so long. However, Sylvester's reign of terror had not gone unnoticed by other groups on campus. The Clansmen confraternity, a deadly and secretive organization that originated in Calabar, had been watching Sylvester's rise to power with great interest. Despite being outnumbered by the Vikings, the Clansmen were known for their ruthlessness and cunning, and they had a reputation for taking down their enemies with precision and brutality. As Sylvester continued to flex his muscles on campus, he had become a prime target for the Clansmen. They saw him as a symbol of the Vikings' stranglehold on the university, and they were determined to take him down. The stage was set for a bloody and brutal confrontation, one that would shake the very foundations of the University of Calabar. The question on everyone's mind was, who would emerge victorious in this battle for supremacy? Davido, the notorious Viking confraternity member, had allegedly been involved in several armed robberies both within and outside the university campus. These allegations had ultimately led to his suspension from the institution, a move that had been widely welcomed by the student body. However, Davido's suspension did little to quell his thirst for violence and intimidation. Despite his suspension, Davido continued to underestimate the Clansmen confraternity, perhaps due to their relatively small numbers compared to the Vikings. This underestimation would ultimately prove to be a costly mistake. In the year 2016, the Clansmen confraternity had convened a meeting at a secluded location behind one of the female hostel halls. The meeting had been a secretive affair, with only select members of the confraternity in attendance. As fate would have it, Davido had stumbled upon some external Clansmen who had attended the meeting. An altercation had ensued, with the external Clansmen beating Davido up and rough-handling him. This humiliation had left Davido seething with anger and a desire for revenge. In retaliation, Davido had rallied his fellow Vikings and set out to exact revenge on the Clansmen. Their primary targets were two notorious Clansmen known as Deebam and Ibuka. However, luck had been on the side of the two Clansmen, as they had managed to evade Davido and his Viking squad. As Davido and his cohorts combed the campus in search of their targets, they coincidentally stumbled upon another Clansman known as Senator. Without hesitation, they pounced on Senator, attacking him with brutal ferocity. The assault had left Senator badly mauled, a grim reminder of the violence and intimidation that Davido and the Vikings were capable of unleashing. The attack on Senator had sent shockwaves throughout the campus, with many students living in fear of Davido and the Vikings. The Clansmen confraternity, however, had taken note of the attack, and whispers of a looming retaliation began to circulate. The stage was set for an all-out war between the Vikings and the Clansmen, with the university campus serving as the battleground. 1 year after the previous altercation, the tensions between the Vikings and the Clansmen on campus once again reached a boiling point. The conflict involved Davido and the same Clansmen who had been mentioned earlier, and it ended in tragedy. In the heat of the moment, Dinho, a close friend of Davido and a fellow Viking member, was allegedly shot by some group of Clansmen. The incident sent shockwaves throughout the campus, and it's unclear if the Vikings retaliated for Dinho's shooting or not. The years went by, and many of the cultists involved in the clashes had progressed to their 300 level and final year. However, the animosity between the Vikings and the Clansmen never truly dissipated. In 2018, another clash erupted in the male hostel of the university, sparked by a seemingly trivial issue over a phone. Davido, once again at the center of the conflict, was beaten by a group of Clansmen. The humiliation and anger he felt only served to fuel his desire for revenge. Davido quickly regrouped with his fellow Vikings, and together, they chased the Clansmen out of the campus. The Vikings, numbering around 20, vastly outnumbered the Clansmen, who were only 5 in number. The Clansmen were forced to flee, leaving behind their wounded pride and a deep-seated desire for revenge. However, Davido and the Vikings were far from satisfied. Later that same evening, they embarked on a mission to hunt down any Clansmen they could find and unleash their pent-up anger upon them. Their search eventually led them to a lone Clansman, whom they caught and severely maimed. The brutality of the attack was staggering, and it seemed as though the Vikings would stop at nothing to assert their dominance. Fortunately, the Clansman's ordeal was cut short when school operatives intervened, rescuing him from the clutches of the Vikings. The incident served as a grim reminder of the ongoing struggle for power and control between the Vikings and the Clansmen, a conflict that seemed to have no end in sight. March 16, 2018, marked a turning point in the long-standing feud between the Vikings and the Clansmen. The Clansmen, still seething from the previous day's events, had reached a breaking point. In a secret gathering, they declared war on Davido and his fellow Vikings, vowing not to rest until Davido was brought to justice. The Clansmen took a solemn oath, swearing to abstain from food and drink until Davido was executed. Meanwhile, Davido remained blissfully unaware of the danger lurking around the corner. His consistent underestimation of the Clansmen had bred a sense of complacency, leading him to let his guard down. On that fateful day, he embarked on a leisurely walk from the school's main gate, strolling down to Malabia. As he approached the vice-chancellor's block, a sense of unease settled over him. Suddenly, 2 Clansmen emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured by black caps and clothing. Without hesitation, they opened fire, and Davido's world was shattered by the sound of gunfire. The hit squad didn't stop there. They also caught up with another Viking member, Wilson Ebner, a chemistry education student. He was shot at a building under construction opposite the Faculty of Education Twin Theater Hall. The sound of gunfire echoed through the campus, sending shockwaves of fear through the student body. Davido's demise sent ripples of excitement through the female hostels, where many students had lived in fear of his brutality. Rumors swore that some girls were even rejoicing over his death, praising his killers for ridding the campus of a terror. The Vikings, however, were not about to let Davido's death go unavenged. A wave of violence swept through the campus as the Vikings and Clansmen engaged in a series of bloody clashes. Innocent students were caught in the crossfire, and the death toll continued to rise. The university was forced to temporarily cease lectures as the situation spiraled out of control. The once peaceful campus was now a battleground, with students living in fear of being caught in the middle of the conflict. The Vikings and Clansmen seemed determined to destroy each other, regardless of the cost in human lives. As the violence escalated, one thing was certain: the campus would never be the same again.